Hello there, it's Simone. Today I would like to share a notebook review of this notebook. This is the H100S. Maybe that's the lineage, I'm not sure. It's a Tsubame notebook, and I became interested in this paper because I have been using their ink collection cards for swatching my inks, and I really love the paper. So I went on the hunt and found that the paper they use for the ink collection cards is the OK Fools paper. It's a paper that is used by Tsubame to make notebooks and these cards. And so I went ahead and purchased a whole notebook to see what it looks like and to test out the paper and see if that would be a paper that I would love to use for journaling. So I am going to share what I have found. This I purchased at St. Louis Art Supply in the summer of 2022. It is very reasonably priced. I will leave the price on the screen right here so you can see for yourself, because I have to check it out. It is a soft cover bound notebook. It is lay flat binding. Like so. I purchased a lined notebook because I really like long form journaling on lined paper, but I think there are but I think there are different lineages available. Lineages, is that something? Lineatur in German. The line width is pretty good, in my opinion. I really enjoy when it's more the college lined ruling instead of the elementary ruling that is common here in the States. This has 4 signatures. I will leave the amount of pages in this book also on screen. If we compare this to other soft-bound notebooks, I have the Taroko shop. This is a standard size, so it's not as wide, but it's also higher. I purchased this as an A5 notebook, so let's just see if maybe the Taroko is bigger than other notebooks. I'm curious now. I haven't really noticed that before. So this is an A5 size notebook. Nope. The Tsubame notebook is a bit shorter than A5 size. So yeah, I'm gonna just pull out all of the soft-bound notebooks that I own. This is a Hobonichi. The paper weight in this notebook is very thin. It's 52 GSM. You can barely make out the signatures back here. This as well is lay flat binding. You cannot see the signatures in this one. This is also Tomoe River 52 GSM. It did not hold up very well to almost daily use. I'm currently using this for long form journaling. So that's something to look out for if you want your notebook to last for a while, on how the construction on the outside is. This is very soft. It's a very flimsy cardstock. It is not paper, but it's definitely not as thick as, for instance, this cardstock here, or let's see what this one is. This one is the thickest of all 3 of those. And let's grab this one again. I would say that these 2 covers compare. This is not to say that this will not hold up. I personally would probably use this in a cover, and so then your notebook is protected. you can, as I said, you can see the signatures right here. What I just noticed when I opened it up to the middle of the signature is that this seems machine stitched, and the stitch binding is off center. So if I turn the page here, I will have, it's not going to turn right in the middle. So the crease is right here, but the stitch binding is off center, and so it doesn't fold over all the way. Let's see what this signature is. However, I have to say this is right in the middle. So I haven't, let me check for the Taroko Shop one. I haven't even checked that with the Taroko Shop one when I did the review. So this binding is very similar, but also not. I am not sure that you can actually see this. So this is just like you would expect from a sewing machine. This is definitely machine bound, sewn all the way here. This, I am not 100% sure. This to me looks more like it is hand bound. There is gaps in the stitching here, which would indicate that you wouldn't have a sewing machine for this. And so a sewing machine can't really leave stitches out. Interesting. This is very interesting. But I have to say that for the price, the construction of this notebook is definitely okay. Let's look at not the middle of the signature, but where two signatures meet, and see what the how it looks there. Does it still open up flat? How does it hold up? Definitely the lines don't match, for sure. They're off by just one millimeter. And this is what it looks like. It still lays flat, doesn't open up all the way. This is normal for a binding like this because you need the signatures to connect and meet, because otherwise something like this would happen. This is the next page where it's not glued together. When I look at this, it seems to me more like this is 4 thin notebooks glued together as one thick notebook. I would imagine that it would be super easy to just take this and divide this up into 4 notebooks at the connections here. I don't really want to do that right now, but I'm pretty sure that that's a possibility. The paper is, we'll have to look it up. I didn't do my necessary research beforehand. It will be on the screen, so you will know what the GSM count is for this paper, but this is definitely thicker, more in the realm of maybe 80 GSM paper, something like that. I am going to do a time lapse of ink tests and stamps, and you will see those here, and then I will come back and give you a review on what I think about this notebook. So I am back with all the tests that I made. The first thing that I want to talk about is this notebook and the paper, the pen test that I made with all the papers that I have currently inked. It is amazing. It definitely feels like it is coated. It's very smooth. All of the nibs that I used, well, the only one that is not a medium nib is the Reverse Architect with an extra fine nib. This one I wouldn't count as a fine. Writes more like a medium. So you do not have a broad spectrum of different nibs, but they glide over the paper really smoothly. You can see all of the shading properties. It doesn't suck out the ink. When I write with Cosmo Aerolite paper, often what happens is I feel like the paper sucks out the ink and it feels like I drag the nib through mud. This is not how this feels. It sits on top of the paper. It glides very easily across. It doesn't look like there is bleed or feathering of the ink. This is where I placed my thumb. It doesn't seem like it makes a difference, like there is some separation or so. I mean, it is currently November when I film this, even though you won't see this for a while. And my hands are pretty dry. So this might not be representative for everyone here. The colors are very vibrant. The writing experience is nice on the paper. The paper sound feels good. There is doesn't look like it's ghosting. You can see that there is writing on the other side. So that may be a minimal ghosting. Let's say this. I have paper swatches on various different papers, and I am very, very surprised by this paper. This paper is one of the cheapest papers in the comparisons that I have made so far, and it holds up to all of the papers that are more expensive for sure. So here, let's just go through the stamp and watercolor first, and then let's compare the ink swatches to different ink swatches on other papers. Stamping turned out really nicely. It is very visible. It is coated, and it feels like the juicier the ink, the more easily it is that your stamp will glide over the paper. It has barely any ghosting. I'm really impressed. This paper is very, very usable. Let me just try and see if the ink smudges after it dried. So I put it down and I wiggled it around, and you can see that there is it moved a little. So when you stamp on this paper, you really have to be careful that you put your stamp down and then do not wiggle. I know that you shouldn't do this on any paper, but this paper definitely is not very forgiving. So it looks really good. I'm impressed. The watercolor, same thing here. It hasn't dried yet, so the dry time is quite high. The separation of the colors, which there is a name for it, and every time I film videos with fountain pen inks and watercolors, I'm losing one of those words. It's not chromo shading, but it's basically chromo shading just in watercolor style. They are separating really nicely on here. I put a lot of water onto this paper, and it crinkles, yes, and the sound is very nice, but it does not bleed through at all. There is enough coating on the paper that will keep your water on this side of the paper. So yeah, I really like this. The ink swatches. I have lots of other ink swatches here. Let's compare it first to the paper that, in my opinion, compares most. especially in pricing. So a Rhodia dot pad is very similar in price to the OK Fool's paper notebook. And I would have to say that by far the OK Fool's paper is out performing the Rhodia dot pad. This is more spongy. It takes in the water. It doesn't sit on top. Here it does. Interesting in this ink swatch of the Sailor Manyo Neko Yanagi, I am using a purple chromo shading ink for this because I have seen on Instagram various posts where people share bank paper and Tomoe River paper swatches next to each other, and there is something in the coating or the formulation of the bank paper that takes away some of the color pigments, or so I wanted to, I'm using this on all of the papers just to see what it looks like, and it seems like maybe this is the case here, but it might just be this paper. I'm curious to see when I get to actual bank paper what it looks like, but I don't see any of the turquoise or teal color in this swatch. There is really dark blues that I don't see on any of the other papers in this swatch here. It is shading very nicely. The Rohre and Klingner Altgold Grün has some dark shadows around, which I would explain by the amount of ink that I put down here. There is no blue hues in this swatch, which in some papers it comes out as if there was blue inside. It looks very yellowy, very olivey green, very, very lovely to be honest. And then the shading ink, the Diamine Inkvent Black Ivy, which is one of the inks that I wish I would be able to love. I don't really care for sheening inks where the sheen is completely overpowering everything else that is makes this ink. So I made this at least 20 minutes ago, and if I'm using a lot of pressure, but you can see that some of the sheen comes off, which is new. All of the other papers that I have tried this so far did not do this. So this is something that you would keep in mind. If you are someone who loves sheening inks, super sheening inks, then maybe this paper is not for you. So here is the Rhodia paper. There's almost no sheen on the Rhodia paper. This is definitely really nice. This is how it compares to 68 GSM Tomoe River paper. Definitely nicer swatch on this paper than on the 68 GSM. This is Cosmo Air Light. I would say that this is almost heavier than this. This is 75 GSM. Comparing here, there's yellow, there's blue, there's less of this here, but when you write with the writing sample, it does not differ much. That's something that we also, or I feel always that I need to keep in mind. When I usually use these papers, I do not make ink splotches unless it's an ink swatch book, but I use it to write, and there is barely a difference noticeable between those. Here there is definitely one. This is more yellow, this is more blue, and the sample on the Inkvent is, you can see more of the base color. So if that's something that you want to see. However, if we compare the writing, there's no difference. So let me just try and see what. Okay, so you see, you can rub off the sheen on this paper as well. And then lastly, or hold on, we will compare Tomoe River paper 52 GSM, because this is basically where I am coming from. This is my go-to paper and I'm branching out and exploring all the other papers. This is where I'm coming from. So this is the last one that we'll compare, but this is the Regalia paper. It is a paper test that I did in November of 2022. And I really like the paper. It has all the properties that I see with the Cosmo Air paper. However, it does not feel like I am dragging my pens through mud. So that's a plus. Definitely more shading, more properties here. The color of the purple it's more leaning more towards blue on the Regalia paper, and on the OK Fools paper, it's more leaning towards pink. I'm letting you know because I will have to see how this comes out on camera. A lot bluer on the Regalia paper, yellow on the Altgold Grün. On the OK Fools paper, this looks like a lovely olive green. This looks like a gray green, light gray green. Again, here you have more of the base color. If you apply it very lightly, there is all sheen on this paper. Let's use this finger to try and rub off some of the, yep, it comes off as well. So these papers are surely not recommended for sheening inks, but I think you will experience problems with smearing and high drying times on most of the papers. But barely in the writing, there's almost no difference between those inks. Lastly, this is what Rohrer & Klingner Altgold Grün looks on 52 GSM Tomoe River paper. It's fairly similar. However, I have to admit that I really love how the Altgold Grün looks on the OK Fools paper. This is exactly how I would love to Rohrer & Klingner Altgold Grün look on all papers. Then let's move to the Neko Yanagi, just up here. Definitely more pink on the Tomoe River paper. It looks like a purple on here, more like a blue-pink shading. It's still amazing on this paper, but it's definitely more exciting on the Tomoe River paper. And then I do have a swatch of the Black Ivy on the cream paper, Tomoe River paper. I swatched all of those in a Hobonichi Weeks. This was done over a year ago, and I can still rub off the sheen, which is very interesting. But yeah, so it looks black here. It looks black here. There is some red sheen if you move the paper around. You can tell that I definitely am not a fan of sheening inks. Let's put it this way, super sheening inks. They just don't do it for me. I would love to hear from you what you think of this paper. I went in with barely no expectation, and I am wowed for sure. I really think that this is a very affordable option for great paper. I would prefer this over the Rhodia paper any day. I cannot wait to use this as a writing journal, and I haven't even mentioned that there's an index page in the front, which, to be fair, the pages are not numbered, so I'm not really sure why this is included. And then there's like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18 lines. This book has a lot of pages, so it doesn't relate to the page count at all. It's a nice try. We can cover this up and you decorate it maybe, or you could just remove it from the notebook. It feels like it's a nice protection between the cover and the first page that you can write on. yeah, I am really looking forward to using this. I'm not sure if I would cut this down to fit into a standard traveler's notebook. I would be sad because then I wouldn't have this cover. It's not very friendly to cut down, but then again, I would maybe just cover the outside so it's not as obvious that I cut it down. On the inside, it wouldn't really make a difference. There's nothing that would make this look awful. So there's my thought process here, but at the pace that I'm using notebooks, this is not a notebook that I'm using very soon. But I'm actually really looking forward to using it. And I'm reconsidering the order of which I am going to use those notebooks for sure. Let me know if you have any experience with the OK Fools paper and the Tsubame notebook. I know there's lots of Japanese notebooks that look very similar from the outside. So I would love to know if you have used this specific one and what you think of it. Leave it in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was helpful and I hope you have found a new notebook that you would like to explore. See you soon. Until then, bye.